Welcome to Shawn White's Guide to Life. You then can understand where they're coming from. Be like, okay, well, this dude, like, he's not just some dude talking. He knows what it's like to die. Like, or not die, but be pretty close to it, right? To be in states where you wish you were dead. You know, I've never actually asked for it in those moments, but apparently I was pretty damn tough according to my loved ones. But
jeez, oh man, I, when we first talked about doing this, I was like, yeah, because I've heard you kind of tell a brief story, but as you get into it more, man.
A lot of times I'll talk about hope, and hope is one of the most important driving forces in our existence. A lot of times that you're going to run across these instances where you're like, that's false hope. And there is false hope. But, the nature of hope is a lot of times we'll lose it along the way. I like to describe hope as like a mouse. Hope is really fragile and it's fast. It can slip through your fingers at a moment's notice. Then you just got to like search around in order to find it. You find its mouse hole, it gives you a greater chance in order to figure out where it is and get her again. Hold hope in your hands. Move forward. I think that there was a defining moment in my existence where I actually understood it. It led me to a powerful epiphany on how to navigate the experience of life. I've always believed that you only know the scale of pain that you know. So if you stub your toe and you've never experienced anything greater than that, that is your 10 level pain. I've had some cool debates with other people about that where they're like, Shawn, you're actually wrong. Stubbing your toe is not 10 level pain. It doesn't matter whether or not it's subjective. Objectively, there are pains that are beyond that person's comprehension, and so they can never really understand it. If you're trying to connect with someone, you can't alienate them based upon their pain experiences. If you say, well, you don't understand because you've not felt enough pain yet, what you're doing is you're dismantling a bridge. We're all separated by chasms, misunderstanding, and lack of empathy. And we alienate people with anger. And so it's anger or differences. So with pain especially, we all know pain, but not everyone really knows the sheer magnitude of pain and what it can be. Unfortunately, I don't have that mechanism where like you experience so much pain to pass out. I think that would be great. It would have been so amazing. I've never been in that movie. I've only had unrelenting agony. I experienced that in the hospital whenever I was sliced open. Whenever they, when the universe said, Shawn, 2 lungs is 1 lung too many. We need to make this a challenge for you, so we're going to take 1 away. And then I experienced it again, more specifically, that 10 level pain whenever I was going through chemotherapy. The movies don't really do it justice. And I've talked to people before. They're like, oh, isn't it just like your hair falls out and you feel really sick? Like, yeah, that is that. But there's something that it's not really touched upon. And it's probably for the best, but I'm going to share it with you because you all sound like a little bit of a masochist if you're listening to me right now. Whenever I started chemotherapy, there was nothing to prepare me for what I was about to experience. There was no one there to help guide me. It was actually quite a profound experience. Another blessing of my life was there was this gentleman. I call him Eno. In my illustrations, I have some illustrations that kind of paint the story, and it's a picture of this guy is a pig in the story, and you'll understand why if whenever you see it. But before I went into chemotherapy, he said to me, Shawn, if you don't have someone taking care of you, you're going to die during chemotherapy. I got freaked out. I'm like, dude, I just had my lung removed. I'm about to die because I'm alone. And I, went about trying to figure it out. And eventually he goes, well, Shawn, I can live with you. I can take care of you. And in exchange for this, like you just like pay for my lodging, my food, and I'll make your dinner and I keep your house clean. And I'll make sure that you get to your doctor's appointments and stuff. And I was like, okay, this is a friend. He really cares about me. He's going to help take care of me during this process. This is amazing. Of course, this is a win-win. He gets to live for free, and I get taken care of, and this is great. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize that was not true, and I would have been fine on my own. And it was his strategy in order to live for free, and just live for free. And I remember, like, whenever my treatments had begun, there was a definitive moment where he said to me, he's like, Shawn, you're going to look really stupid when your hair falls out. I was like, what? Like, yeah, you're going to look ugly, man, when your hair falls out. Now, most life, you'd be like, well, it's just your hair. Whenever your hair does fall out, and it's not because it's a male pattern baldness, it's a completely different experience. When I remember waking up the first morning, and I was laying beside my then girlfriend, was that the cute girl I was talking about before, who I met whenever we like pair bonded when I was in the ICU. And I woke up, and my pillow looked like a cat had shed all of its hair on the pillowcase.
Shit.
It was like, oh my God. I mean, it was like so traumatic. It took to walk in front of the mirror, touch your hair, and it to fall out into between your fingertips. Even more so, like, I have a lot of identity in my beard. I love my beard. It represents me. I think that a lot of women will understand like that, in that their hair is their identity. And so when you see the things that make you begin to fall out and just disappear, your identity crumbles, and you have nothing to anchor yourself to reality. You have nothing to say, well, at least I have this. No, you don't have that. Over the course of treatment, all of my hairs, except for maybe like 3 or 4 eyelashes, were gone. Feeling a woman's like soft legs against your legs feels great when they're hairless, and you're like, man, this is awesome. Is not so great when you're used to having hairy legs and you feel your own legs against your own legs and there is no hair. Is gross. It is super gross. And a lot of it has to do with, this is not how it's supposed to be. This is not normal. This is uncomfortable. And everything, these are just some of the mild experiences. Like, I had a port in my chest. I had to go in for surgery before chemotherapy, put a port inside of my chest. That was so that they could align to my heart to dump this medicine into my body. It's a systemic treatment. My cancer is in the blood, so it could be everywhere. It's not like they could just focus on one spot. They needed to neutralize everything. And port was super uncomfortable. And the way I would explain how that felt every second of the day was, imagine someone grabbing your chest hair and ripping it out from the inside constantly, never stopping. And if someone ever touched it, it would feel like someone hit you in the chest with a ball peen hammer. It was always, every second of every day. That was not very comfortable. That with the fact that chemotherapy, as I said in the beginning, Hollywood doesn't really paint it. Watching Breaking Bad doesn't really paint what the experience is like when you're going through chemotherapy, especially mine, which is a very aggressive, very strong kind of medicine. Like, to give you kind of an idea, is I had I couldn't taste anything. I would throw up constantly. I would throw up, 10 plus times a day. And that's an understatement. It was probably infinitely more than that. Yeah, I would eat something, I'd throw up. I would eat something, I would throw up. I would eat something, I would throw up. And you have to keep fighting it. And, you have this, or like the fatigue would feel like you just like ropes of fatigue wrapped around your bones. And when I moved, it felt like my muscles were being ripped from the bone. That had super glue all throughout my muscles, so if everything was all jammed up, or running out of ability to, running out of breath without moving, or just so many fascinating sensations. There was one time I was sitting outside of one of my then favorite coffee houses. There was people around me, but ultimately I was alone. As I sat there, I was in like unimaginable, unyielding agony. Like there was no escape. I knew there was no way to get around it. Like it was a full body, horror. I could feel. It felt like I had roving chemical fires underneath my skin, and my blood felt like it was boiling. Couldn't feel my fingertips, my hands. I couldn't feel my tongue. I had neuropathy, which is whenever your nerves aren't functioning correctly, and so it just feels like it would shift between. It would feel like you had a candle burning against it.
What was that again?
It's called neuropathy, but this is what I would have in like my fingers and
I know
arms and face and stuff.
you were just robotic. I was wanting to hear what you said again.
Oh, so yeah, imagine that you have like this, it's just
Okay, we are
feeling
getting way robotic right now. So. Oh yeah, it's gone. All right, let us continue.
Okay, so going into the neuropathy, so I'm like neuropathy. This is what I would feel as I was sitting there in the chair. It would like all over my body. I would feel sensations of like, imagine like a candle against your skin or an ice cube. Other times it would feel like it was like pins and needles, like your hand had fallen. Quickly, it would feel like someone had like a blowtorch against my skin. As I sat there, I was in like a level of unimaginable pain, something that was like beyond any threshold that I had ever experienced in my life up to that point. And as I sat there, I was like, okay, Shawn, there is no escape. Like, you are in a prison of your own body right now. What do you do? And I'm like, well, the pain's not going away. There's nowhere to run. So give in. And in that moment, I chose to embrace the pain, to explore the pain, to understand that it is now a part of me. And at the moment that I came to it, there was a wave of peace that washed over me. And it became, I don't know if easier is the right word, because I don't think life actually gets easier. You just come to terms with it. You begin to have a relationship with it. And that fits into this model, this philosophy, this life philosophy that I live with, which is all your emotions, if you treat them like little creatures and you have very select relationships with each, you end up living a higher quality of life. So if you treat your anger differently than how you treat your love, and you treat your pain differently and your joy, all of them have different needs. Some of them need to be put in a cage, right? But you still have to feed the animal that's in the cage, and you still need to give it some kind of love, even though it's a wrecking machine. If you ignore it, it just becomes more feral. So you embrace it. You show all the experiences of life, love, and you will learn how to live a higher quality of life that's more peaceful. And that's exactly what I did at that moment. It was overcoming a hardship, and it wasn't overcoming the pain. It was instead overcoming the obstacle of not being able to be at true peace with yourself and not have hope in that moment. And hope wasn't that the pain was going to end. I knew it wasn't. It wasn't going to go away. But if you only focus on the terror of existence, if you only see the things that scare you, you miss out on so much of the beauty in the world. And that created this profound experience for me. I was after that, I was like, I saw life in a different way. And normally I'd be like afraid of bees. And I would be afraid, because I've always been afraid of being stung by bees because it hurts. And the reason I'm afraid of bees is because when I was like 7 years old, and it wasn't a bee, but it was a wasp. A wasp flew into my sweatshirt, and I couldn't get it off, and it stung me a bazillion times. And ever since that time, anything that buzzes, I would be terrified. I would like run around and be like, oh my God, I'm going to get stung, But after that moment, I was like, you know what, Shawn, if it's going to hurt, it's going to hurt. And there's beautiful things in the world. And I found myself walking into, one day there was these beautiful flowers. And after you have these troubling moments, when you face down these awesome, literally awesome experiences, not that like, oh man, it's so cool, awesome. It is awe-inspiring moments. You see life in a different way, and you can appreciate the magic of every second. So there's one day following succumbing to the pain, I walked into this big bed of flowers, just filled with so many bees. And I wasn't afraid. I was like, I want to see these flowers, and I want to see these bees. And I embraced it. And it was just this profound experience to say, yeah, I'm afraid. I don't want to get stung. But if I do get stung, it was worth it, because I was living life. And I would have never seen that had I have not experienced the highest level of pain in my entire life, sitting in a chair outside of a coffee shop, surrounded by people, but utterly alone and utterly imprisoned, even though I'm free to do anything I want. By succumbing to that experience, I was able to actually live life for the first time in my entire existence. It was liberating. The horror liberated me from the life that I thought that I was living, which was far worse than the terror that I was facing in that second. When the door opens up for you to live in a way where you can succumb to the experience and build a relationship with it, you're free. You're freer than than you've ever been before. Freer than anything can ever give you. When you find your own peace, that's whenever you're living with harmony. It was a long story there for you, I reckon. But there's these are little tidbits that I picked up along the way. That was a super important moment for me.
Yeah.
It was another moment that led me down to understanding what hope is. It's easy to get lost. It's easy when you lose hope all the time. We lose hope all the time throughout the day. But don't think that this is another thing I've learned. People seem to think that you could live in peace your entire existence. You don't. Life sucks. Let's be frank. It does suck. But it is also beautiful. It is incredible. And it is a true blessing. But if you only focus on the bad, you're never going to ever enjoy any of the good. And some of the best things come from the bad.
I know.
And that's where, let's get back into story time. I instead of too many adjectives.
Well, real quick, it's so inspiring to hear this, especially this tormenting story, because when you're giving these definitions of hope and just experiencing the pain and just go through it and just accept it, I mean, to me, these are things that people, or at least especially me, this is really good to hear, because this, if ever, heaven forbid, this happens to me or other people, or God, I don't know how to say it without sounding an asshole, but it's like a good guide to, looking forward to what we're going to be in store for if we get cancer.
Yeah, well, I mean, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be cancer.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Like I said, no matter what, just saying those words makes me sound like an asshole, and I apologize.
Oh, man, you don't know what the future holds for yourself, but everything that I have learned, I firmly believe it has lit the fire of my lantern to illuminate the way for you to see the holes in life that you would otherwise fall in. And the universe has given me the beautiful blessing of falling into them, so I know they are. And that's the same thing I do in my professional life as I do for what I hope to do for my loved ones. And the whole reason why this is because every step in my massage career has been terrible. From the beginning of school up into the last job that I had where I wasn't working for myself, the entire industry has been horrendous. I love the beauty and the magic that massage does, the ways that I can help people experience peace and harmony for the first time in their life, or to help alleviate the pain that they face. But everything else around it is terrible. And just because like the guts of it are bad doesn't mean that it can't be made into something greater. And that's, I'm a man who lives with purpose. But my purpose is to change how the world works, but not the whole world, because that's too big. So you find something that works for you. And even though my life experiences, you may never get cancer, and I hope that you never do. And if you have to use these tools, and if you do get them, that's great. But I also think that the value of some of these words are great, no matter what disease that you may have, or if you have none at all. Mm-hmm. You could just be facing down a hard time and be like, look, man, it's going to suck. Let's be straight with you. It's going to suck. Well, I think this crap about people saying, oh, it's always going to be good. No, it's not. It's not always going to be good. But that doesn't mean you can't live your life. And that doesn't mean you can't see the good in the world.
Mm-hmm. Because it's hard to get. I was getting ready to say this. No matter what you do, sometimes depression, sometimes whatever the case may be, it's hard to move on from the bad times. And I think a lot of people suffer from that. So it's really good to hear, hopefully, steps to move on from it.
Yeah, and if you can't get past it, It doesn't mean that your life is over. Life is your soul, man. So like, I think that a lot of times, people get stuck in the minutia of being like, well, everything's bad. It's always going to be bad. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm afraid. And then they lock themselves down and don't ever do anything with their existence. Whether or not you've not entered that stage in life yet. And I do think it's a stage. I think there is a definitive growth stage in someone's life when they say, yeah, I'm going to die. But it's more than just, there's that stage. You're like, I'm going to die inevitably. I'm going to eventually die. But you don't really believe that. I don't think most people believe that. There's nothing in their universe to indicate that they will die because they've never died. Nothing bad, really bad is going to happen to them because nothing bad has ever really happened to them. They've never had their mortality tested. And so, it limits their ability to understand that they are actually alive. Because, I think one of the first steps to understanding what your purpose is and living with 100% passion is knowing that you are alive and also knowing that you're going to die. And you would say, well, Shawn, that's 101 life. It's not. There's so many people who've never actually taken the time to explore their mortality. And because of that, they're never going to have the ability to actually live life with purpose. Because unless you see that something's finite, you can never appreciate it. That's like, I think that it's so important in life for children to have a goldfish that dies or a pet that dies or a grandparent that dies in their life, because it shows them that there is finality. And if you love someone, you should treasure every second that you have with them, because life is fleeting. You can never really truly appreciate love until someone that you have loved has passed away and went somewhere where you'll never see them again. But once you have it, and if you can harness that and say, yes, I'm going to die and I am alive, you can then fall in love with the fact that the people that you love will die and that they are alive. And it gives you an opportunity to celebrate them in ways you otherwise never would have.
Mm-hmm. It's so deep, but yet so like common sense, it feels like,
Most things are,
it's amazing.
One is, we know life is simple and complex. It's that cliche. Well, of course it is, Shawn. Of course it's all simple, but it's all complex. It is as much as complex as you make it, but that's not even true either.
Mm-hmm.
Life is hard. That's part of the reason why it's so great. If everything were easy, it would have no value. The more you have to work for something, the better that it is. Now it's nice. Sometimes it's nice just to have a gimme, right? Like if everything if in your life, if everything that was easy was like, if everything was given to you, you would never appreciate what you had, ever.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that you wouldn't be appreciation. It would be, you would be like, oh man, it sucks I don't have that anymore because that was so much fun. Or I really enjoyed that being so easy. Now life is hard. Instead of being like, oh, I really appreciate it because I earned that. I earned that relationship. I earned that person's trust.
It's like when you see somebody, and they're getting stuff, but they never worked for it. They tend to get more crankier and more like, oh, this sucks. And yeah. And while you're looking at them like going, oh, really? Yeah, I would kill for that because I got to keep doing this hardcore. So yeah, I understand the difference between gimme and, earning it. But I mean, a lot of, yeah. I don't know how to keep. It's hard because you have such a great story and great talks, and I'm like, I want to contribute, but
you have, going back to the model of pain that I said earlier. No one knows each other's pain. No one knows each other's experiences. We can identify and empathize with one another. Empathize. My experiences don't negate yours. And especially if you're sharing on like an emotional level, you're sharing about life, things that you have to contribute are incredibly valuable.
Mm-hmm.
It's when people stop sharing that everything begins to dissolve. If you can't listen to the thoughts and ideas and emotions of other people's, what true value are your thoughts, ideas, and opinions? And most likely they're pretty crappy. If you're not willing to take an idea of someone else's and put it inside of yourself and consider whether or not they have something to contribute, most likely your ideas suck. Most likely your existence is pretty miserable. We're born, I think we exist to be a community. And if you want to push out everyone else just because want to live in an echo chamber, then you're running into a problem. And I think that's a lot of times what we do. We surround ourselves with people who echo what we say, and then we enter these patterns where we just keep doing the bad crap that we have always done, or end up running across the crap people in our lives. I like to say we are the what I try to do in life is this. I say I surround myself with a feather of the bird I want to be. Right. So if I want to be a bluebird, I'm going to hang out with birds who have blue feathers. However, there's another important detail to put with there. There's a lot of charlatans and con artists who do that. But what they're doing is
not to interrupt, but circling back to what you said previously about a particular roommate of yours.
Oh yeah. We'll go back to what Eno.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, wait, that was another. That dude was a piece of work. He ended up. So he had told me that he was going to. He needed, or I needed him, and he was also like he's a certain kind of con artist, a certain kind of he's not a charlatan, but he's a con artist. A con artist is probably one of the worst kinds that you could be, because I'd known the guy for like 20 years at that time, maybe longer, but he had convinced me that I needed to have someone there with me to live, and he was in the beginning, I guess he was fine. Until I had my first treatment, and then I was bedridden for like 15 days, and then the dude did nothing. I mean, nothing. After being in bed for so long, I got up and I went out into the living room, and the dude just like sat on his ass all day, and he was texting, and you could hear the texting in my room. It's like, it made these weird sounds. It was like constantly like weep, 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 and I came out and like. When I walked out in the house, okay, so whenever I was first able to get out of bed and start moving around after my first treatment, it was brutal. And like the house was just a wreck. It was like super disgusting, smelly. There was like a cloud of flies in the kitchen. There was trash overflowing into the floor. There was a mountain of dishes. The cat litter box hadn't been changed. These are things that he was supposed to do. And I'm like, I look around and my hair is, falling out. And I'm in unimaginable pain. My skin is on fire. Whenever I move, it feels like my limbs are being pulled out of the joint. And I'm like, I go, dude, like, gotta clean the house. And he looked, he's like, and he sighed. And then I go, what about the kitchen, man? He's like, doing dishes gives me flashbacks. And I'm like, what? And so I cleaned the house, and this healthy guy sitting on the table, who's supposed to be my caretaker, who was supposed to be like, this was his job, was to keep the house clean and keep me fed, keep me safe. Brought me to doctor appointments. He could stay there for free, and I paid for his food and stuff. Mm-hmm. He ended up like this. I cleaned the house around him as he sat and played little games on his phone or whatever he was doing. And that became the standard with him. That's what it just became. Like the house would get disgusting, so I would go under treatment. The house get disgusting. I would eventually peel myself out of my deathbed and go and clean the house around him. There was a point when it reached its threshold where I was like, you know what? It's going to be cheaper for me to just buy a car and drive myself, because I got rid of my car before treatment, before I had my lung removed. It was in bad shape, and I was like, just get rid of it and we'll be done, right? Because I don't know how long I'm going to be out anyways. So I was like, what is it going to look like to just get a car and start driving myself around? And it was cheaper to buy a new car, full coverage insurance, and a down payment than it was for what he was charging me to take me to the doctor.
Oh my God. Seriously?
So like my doctor's office was like 5 minutes away from where I lived. He was angry when I only gave him $40 for him to drive me to the doctor's office. He's like, and all I ever do is drive you places. And I was like, well, that's what you're here for, dude. You live for free. And that's the deal you set up. You set this deal up. You tricked me into thinking that I was like going to die. If that weren't the case, we would have been fine. Wouldn't have had to need you. Like Uber would have been cheaper than you. And hell, I had to use Uber a few times because the dude wouldn't get up out of bed. And so I had to use Uber to go to the doctor. So, so I ended up getting a car because I knew that that was cheaper than him. And then eventually I'm like, dude, you don't do any, as I was getting my headspace. And this is really hard when you're going to chemotherapy because you have chemo fog. You lose sight of like who you are and the world around you, and you lose your memories. There was times when I couldn't remember my girlfriend's name. I forgot where I went to school. Huge blocks of time and memories were just gone. It was really easy to gaslight someone, especially whenever in that state. So it made his manipulation tactics that much easier. So, but there was a time where I was like, okay, I reached my threshold, and I'm like, I cannot live this way. I said to him, if you're not doing anything, you're going to pay rent because like you're living here for free and then charging me money to do stuff that was supposed to be in exchange for services rendered. You're not doing this. So you either pay rent or you leave. And he was like, oh, I'm going to kill myself. I'm really depressed. Like if you kick me out, I'm going to kill myself. And I'm like, whoa, dude. Like, whoa. Like I'm going through chemotherapy. I have no immune system. Any kind of stress is like destructive to me. And I'm like, how is this fair? And of course, life isn't fair, right? Life's never fair. But it was definitely like an eye opener. And I love this man. He was like one of my best friends. I'm like, you're going to kill yourself. Okay, let's do something about this. I didn't have much money, but I was like, let me use what money I have to send you to a therapist and see what can be done. Put something together, man. Like, see what I can do. I sent him off. I don't know if he went because, they'll never tell you if he went or what was spoken of.
Yeah.
Then he came back and he was like, he's like, so how are you feeling now? After a couple of sessions, and he's like, I'm feeling pretty good. I go, all right, so I love you, but you need to pay rent because I don't, I can barely take care of myself because during this time I was on disability because there was no way I could work. And I was down and out, man. You have a grown man who's living off of the limited means of a man who's literally dying at that point, and he's an able-bodied man unwilling to work.
And this is the same, just real quick, this is the same guy you told me about later on, and you stopped me from going after him. Remember that?
Of course. I don't want to see any harm come to him.
All right. Continue.
So, so it's it was so crazy. And he ended up like moving out in the middle of the night, which was so weird. He just didn't have the confidence to even tell me, hey, I'm going to move out out of your place. That would have been nice. But he did. And it was good. It was a good experience. And the reason why it's so good is because it showed to me that no matter what our boundaries are, no matter what we learn in life, there will always be people who get grandfather claused in. That guy was not a good dude. Sometimes we make mistakes when we find ourselves in bad spots, but whenever it's habitually bad towards the people that we love, that's a different story. There was at any point in our arc together, he could have been like, shit, I'm treating my buddy like garbage, but he never came to that conclusion. He never tried to do anything different. And whenever the means that he was, eating out of my hands were taken away, he just got angry. Hell, there was a time whenever I was sitting in the living room with him, and he's like, man, you should really give me power of attorney. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you should, just in case something happens, give me power of attorney over you. And then he started talking about my disability money as it would being our money and not my money. And then he would ask me to pay for his car note. He had bought this car, and I don't know why he bought it because he didn't have a job. And he was trying to get me to pay for his insurance and trying to get me to pay for his car note. Jeez. This is crazy, dude. This doesn't make any. Why would I pay for this stuff? I mean, you're already living here for free and not taking any. I had to call my friend Tony to come over and change the cat litter box. And Tony lives like 35 minutes away from my house. Jeez. Dude wouldn't do it. He wouldn't, it's not. I mean, I have a dishwasher, man. He wouldn't do the dishes. It gave him
Wait,
flashbacks.
was
All this
this
stuff
the
is
same
crazy.
guy who did all the destructive stuff and he had to
No,
call
that's
the
a different
cops on?
guy.
Oh, okay. So this is the one before the one I was going to go after. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
The one who robbed me is a different friend who robbed me. Yeah.
All right. Let's finish up with this
Yeah.
story. Wow.
Yeah. So, it's just even in that, and I say this all the time, every bad thing that happens is an opportunity for you to learn how to help someone else. And I learned from that there's this program. They're called ombudsman. I might be butchering the name. What they are is it's an organization that looks out for caretakers and the people who are being taken care of. And they serve as an intermediary in order to help maintain that everything's on the up and up, that no one's being abused on either direction, provides resource material for caretakers to take care of their own health, or they're taking care of the people that they're taking care of, and they kind of serve as an intermediary to make sure that the peace is maintained. Because like whenever you have like a real caretaker and not like this villain, real caretakers have it really hard. They work their tuchus off. They genuinely care for other people. They want to see them do their best. It's a really hard job. It's a thankless job. This service gives them a means to help protect the person that they're caring for, while at the same time taking care of themselves. And if there were like an ombudsman in this situation, this would have never happened. It would have stopped before it began. Hell, if I would have had the knowledge I have today, I would have been like, yeah, don't let your douchebag friends. I didn't know he was a douchebag at the time, but like, don't let someone convince you that you're going to die if you don't have a caretaker. There's resources that exist that would have facilitated that if it were actually necessary. So if you have someone in your life and they're trying to convince you that you need to be taken care of, really explore your resources and see if there are other avenues that could be done. And even if there isn't, really, get into the motives of if it's your mom and dad, they're trying to take care of you, that's one thing. If your daughter or son, it's another thing. When it's just like when it's a friend and they seem to try to get some sweet deal, just remain aware that the person you are today, if you met this person today, would you let them in your life? Because this guy, he got in my life because he was grandfathered in past all of my judgment decisions and judgment calls as I matured as a person. Because the person I was then, in hindsight and reflection, he wouldn't be my friend. I would have never allowed that kind of person in my life. But because I met him when I was 14, that's the person I knew. You don't get to see all the details of someone unless you really look at them and say, is this really my friend? And why are they my friend? And what kind of friend are they? Because not all friends are the same.
Mm-mm.
Mm.